to stay and secure the Strait of Hormuz. And as we've seen in the past few days, they have been hitting the bridges. And if you look at the bridges, it's all the bridges that lead to the southern coast of Iran. Just about all of them have been hit. And what that tells you is that they are destroying. A number of people have said that there's going to be no boots on the ground, but there seems to me that there are going to be plans to at least put a limited number of boots on the ground in order to secure part of the southern coast, so that it will reduce the number of sites that can easily hit the Strait of Hormuz. So basically the plan, I think, I mean I'm no expert, but it just seems to me that the plan is to shift the sort of drone and missile facilities that Iran is using to hit the Strait of Hormuz, shift that from into Iran by several hundred kilometers, so that it can actually be managed in terms of defending it. Because if you're on British Island and the Strait of Hormuz is right underneath you, then obviously you can hit it at any time. You will hit it very precisely. But if you're hundreds of kilometers away from it, then that actually makes it a lot more an accurate and successful hit. So that's how it seems to me. But again, it's just the willpower needs to be there. First of all, the second thing that's really needed is the backing of the psychology of the nation, if you like. Those are the things that are not sort of synced or they're not comprehensive either. I think that's where I give my thoughts.
So you asked a couple of questions. I might take a stab at answering them. And let me see how this fits from your perspective. One potential answer is that the president's end game is a deliberate covert effort to align with Russia and Iran to destroy U.S. global influence, because as you point out, Iran wants us out of the region, Russia wants us out of the region so that they can move in. One, leave that question lingering in the back of one's mind as a potentiality. Most of the people who have analyzed all this, such as the Council on Foreign Relations and others, are saying, no, Gary, that's not a possibility. That this is a classic case of strategic miscalculation, ideological friction, and entrapment into yet another forever war. So while the consequences of this conflict may inadvertently serve the interests of Moscow and Tehran, most of the assessments that I've read about it, because this is a question that's been burning at me, are rejecting the idea of some kind of an intentional accord, so to speak. So I looked at an analysis in Foreign Affairs, which is a publication of the Council on Foreign Relations. And that analysis suggests that when the president initiated the war early this year, he had an aggressive pressure strategy. And he assumed, perhaps naively, and maybe not perhaps based on the facts on the ground, that these massive airstrikes and the assassination of Khamenei would trigger a rapid collapse of the regime or force an immediate surrender. Well, that didn't happen. We know that instead of collapsing, Iran dug in. As others, Andrew mentioned, they've adapted their tactics. They choked off the Strait of Hormuz. And so the administration now is forced itself into a reactive military cycle with no clear exit. I don't know which one of those analyses fits best with you, Amir. The first one seems like the simple answer, but that's a pretty onerous suggestion. Maybe it's wrong.
But, I mean, I'm not really into the
sort of, conspiracy theories as such, which the first one kind of leans towards a little bit. But then the second one, I actually think a heck of a lot is at stake. I think the entire relationship between East and West is at stake here. I think the Strait of Hormuz will determine how America, who's the leader of the Western world, is going to be seen, and subsequently, as a result of that, the entire Western world, if you like, is going to be seen. So the relation, the dynamics between the East and West will change if America decides to throw in the towel. I mean, have absolutely no doubt about that. I don't know what you think about that, Gary.
I think it would be horrific if the United States threw in the towel, but I am in a minority, Amir. And so, as you pointed out, and others have before you, you can't win a war, you can't prosecute a war without the support of the populace. And this war was never sold to the American people. Hell, it wasn't even sold to the members of Congress. Hell, it wasn't even sold to the Republican members of Congress. And the contradictory commentary from the president, as I pointed out earlier, they're now saying, oh, the prices at the pump, they're going to plummet once we reopen the Strait of Hormuz. But the president claims the Strait of Hormuz is open. So, I've been taking it on the chin, quite frankly, Amir, in my social media postings, for simply posting a statement made by the president. People just attack me left, right, and center. I'm not doing my job as a journalist because I'm not pointing out to people that the president lies every time he opens his mouth. If you just say what the president is stating when he posted a minute ago on Truth Social accurately, nobody's saying that I'm misstating or misrepresenting what the president says. Well, hell, I might as well be his press secretary because I'm carrying his water. People are not ready to buy in to this war because they do not like the commander-in-chief. I think that's my thumbnail analysis of it, Amir. I don't know, do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I fully understand the frustration that you have, at your job. I mean, obviously, the last time we spoke, you were equally frustrated when I said don't take much notice of what presidents say. You said, how can I not? And I said, you're absolutely right there. But then you have to look at the trajectory of what he does, or the events on the ground, and see where it is leading. For me, if America was going to throw in the towel, why the hell would it knock down dozens of bridges feeding to the south of the country? I mean, that's just obvious. It's a very obvious question. By the way, nobody calls this a war anymore, which is quite interesting. I mean, they're firing missiles at each other, killing people, and all the rest of it. There are 100 lorries now stuck at the bottom end of Iran that delivered goods, and they want to bring back fuels. They're filled up with fuels, and now they're stuck because all these bridges have been destroyed. So it's obviously affecting the livelihood of, thousands of people, and not to mention people who are losing their lives. And yet nobody calls this a war because they don't want, I don't know why Iran doesn't want to call it a war, by the way, because it would benefit them if they did call it a war, because it would effectively increase the prices in the West for oil. And I would have thought that's their advantage, but maybe because of the internal politics that they don't want to call it a war. I don't know about that. But I can understand your frustration. But at the end of the day, they have to make a decision on the fundamentals here at a high level. Okay, it didn't work out. There was a miscalculation. It's a bit like me going down the road. Okay, I get a dead end. What do? Do I turn around and come back home? Well, maybe not. Maybe I look at, Google Map and I find another way. I think that's where we are.
I would suggest to you, Amir, that was your first mistake. You looked at Google Maps. Why can't we pull out a Rand McNally any longer? People don't know how to read maps. Thanks, Amir. Sin, I guess you get the last word.
No, so I thought I just saw the news about the Houthis threatening Saudi Arabia
Yes.
cut off the Red Sea, and I'm like, what's going on there? Like, these are the two major chokeholds, right? So a lot of the oil that leaves the Middle East get blocked by the Strait of Hormuz, which goes to the Asia, and then the chokehold for Europe is the Red Sea. So combined together, we're looking at 30 to 40% of all the world trade. Actually, to be honest with you, it's more than that, but that's what the official numbers are. But I feel like without oil, it has a ripple effect on every other thing, right? Like, oil is a basis of every economy, at least fossil fuel, that is. So, is Trump not capable of getting that deal that he wanted? And why are we not looking at and anticipating this move by the Houthis? And what do you think the U.S. policy should be going forward? Because I don't know if two major strains or choke points of the world affected is going to be a good thing for any economy. And as not a citizen, but as a person that's engaged in the economy of the world, should we worry about another major economic downturn because of this?
So, the Houthis, as we all know, are rebels in Yemen, and they are controlled, financed by Iran. So this is a front that's being opened by Iran. They're putting a greater squeeze because they see that the petrol flow and the petrodollar is a choke point politically for the United States. So they have declared today an immediate and total naval blockade against Saudi Arabia. Do they have the capability of doing this? I don't know, but that's what they declared. So at the very least, they've opened a dangerous new front, expanding the war, and I will call it a war. So there was a televised video statement by the Houthi military spokesman announcing this maritime embargo under the equation of an eye for an eye. The move is direct retaliation for the Saudi siege on Yemen and the recent coalition airstrike targeting Sana'a International Airport. And so it places critical global energy corridors under a double squeeze now. And I don't know, I'm not a student of history to that degree, and I know the term unprecedented is tossed around cavalierly, but I do not believe that there's been such a double squeeze before. So you're absolutely right in your analysis, Sen. Personally, since you asked me, I think one of the biggest mistakes in all of this was the president's failure to put together a coalition of the willing before going in. I don't know what he was thinking. We do not have Europe behind us, even though Europe is being impacted by all of this. And part of this also has to do with his derogatory remarks toward NATO. Could he have affected the NATO allies paying their fair share and doing more to provide self-protection without embarrassing them on the world stage in the manner in which he did? I don't know. And maybe it was a necessary tool and an effective one, his version of the art of the deal, to get them off the, off their rear ends to do what they needed to do. So at least what occurred as a result of this in that regard, I guess could be chalked up as a success of his administration. But the flip side of that is, what was the cost? And the cost, I believe, for what it's worth, I'm not an expert, others can disagree, but for what it's worth, I believe the cost is he alienated them so badly that there was no way he could go and ask for another coalition of the willing. Because if he had done it and it had been turned down, he would have been embarrassed, and that would have made him a loser. And we know this president doesn't like losers.
So, can I be fair in your judgment and assessment?
I hope you
not to
are.
not to say that you're wrong. I think those are weaknesses that could be attributed to the current president, but wasn't it Biden who stopped the Saudi Arabia finishing the job to get rid of the Houthis back in, if I'm not mistaken, in 2018 or prior to that, when Saudis, UAE, and all the Middle East countries were fighting. First, I think under, I don't know if it was Biden or Trump was in presidency, but the Saudis and the UAE and the Gulf Coalition had taken up the mantle in dismantling the Houthi threat, right? And the Biden administration put pressure on Saudi to and the UAE to stop that war, which now we're paying for. So could it be fair to say that it's not just Trump, but the past two U.S. presidents have not done their due diligence in really foreseeing what is now what we're experiencing?
So most of the analysis on that would suggest that President Biden never had a realistic military or political opportunity to use your term, eliminate the Houthis. Completely destroying that group was never an option on the table because they're deeply entrenched. They're 200,000 strong, and they control territory housing 80% of Yemen's population. So without going to war against Yemen, how do you do that? The Republican Party has suggested repeatedly that, and some Democrats have as well, that Biden did a series of strategic calculations and policy shift opportunities to contain the group, and that emboldened them. But to suggest that he had the ability to eliminate the Houthis, most military analysts, not me, but most military analysts would say no.
No, I agree.
I'll get to you, go. We go one at a time here. Go ahead, Sam. You gotta wait till your turn.
So no, I agree with you. It's porous mountains, hard to attack, but there was no outwardly support for the Middle East and Saudi Arabia coalition that was trying to remove the Houthis from power. I don't think the U.S. was involved, nor the European Union. And to be honest with you, and hindsight is 2020, but the Iranians bragged that they have control of 2 choke points of the world and that they got the world in their hands, their balls. They were bragging that they were the superpower who could do all this.
Right.
And we did nothing about it.
So here's the thing.
We did nothing about it.
All of these problems, the ones that you are talking about, the terrorist attacks, October the 7th, all of that could have been avoided had this regime not been in power. And I think the president was predisposed to eliminating the regime, but the strategy failed. And now we are where we are today. And along the way, he didn't gain support from the Europeans, which might have helped. And he didn't sell it to the American people, which certainly hurt. That's my analysis anyways, for what it's worth. Thank you, Sin. Glow, followed by William.
I would love to continue after they're done.
I wanted to share just some news from Yemen. There's a new armed faction. It's called the Free Yemen Movement, and it has declared an uprising against the Houthis from inside Sana'a. We announced an armed uprising against the Houthi movement from within Sana'a due to the crimes committed by Iran and the Houthis. This uprising comes in response to the Houthi starvation, looting, theft, and killing of Yemenis, as well as their violation of, Yemen's sovereignty and the implementation of Iranian directives. Just that.
Okay, I don't know about this new use of the term Free Yemeni movement. The Free Yemen movement was actually the Free Yemeni movement. It's called Al-Ahrar, is that right? Do I say it right? That's an historical, I don't know anything about this new Free Yemen movement. I'd love to know more. So message me and tell me what you know. William, and I think we'll have time to go back to Sen.
I came up to, basically Amir said that the United States is the leader of the Western world. That's no longer the case. The United States is the wealthiest country in the Western world. The United States has the most powerful military of any single country in the Western world by far. But the United States has, as you were saying, Gary, broken their alliances. They've threatened other NATO members like Canada or the Kingdom of Denmark, threatening Greenland, which is part of the Kingdom of Denmark. The United States has changed from being the lead country within NATO to being the vendor to NATO. So the United States is no longer the leader, and part of that is really the Western world. The alliances are largely held together on economics and an ideological commitment towards democratic governance based on ideas of liberal democracy. And in this administration, there's been an attack upon the economic relationships with our allies, and there's been an attack on the national security, direct national security attacks on NATO allies, and the rest of the world is watching. Everybody sees this. People are paying attention that lead other countries. It's given a lot of uncertainty about our leadership and our commitments with our relationships with the East Asian countries. When we turn on our NATO allies, how does Japan or South Korea or Taiwan look at it? Well, yeah, Trump did get everybody to arm up, and Europe is increasing its military expenditures. Throughout Europe, basically the countries most close to Russia are spending the most, and Japan has changed their constitution, and they are increasing their military expenditures by a lot. South Korea is getting ready for war, and probably not doing it as seriously as they could, but they, all of our Western allies, the democratic allies that we had, are no longer looking to the United States for leadership, and they're beginning to look to each other and forming new relationships, new alliances, and basically trading around us economically to the extent that they can. We're a huge economic powerhouse. We've got the biggest economy of all of them, and they can't avoid us entirely, but they've been switching over to locally produced weapon systems to the extent that they can, rather than simply rely upon the United States. Um, take a look at take a look at the European stocks, and take a look at what's going on in Japan and South Korea. There is a lot of increased investment, and the goal of that increase in investment, by the way we have attacked our alliance structures, is less reliance upon the United States. So maybe Trump thought, oh, I'll beat up on all these countries like a mafia boss, and I'll get them to all kowtow and buy more weapons from the United States. And to some extent, he's been correct. They have. And to a large extent, they have been diversifying away from us, and we have lost the trust of our former allies, and we're no longer the leaders. So I think that's important to recognize and understand.
Thank you, William. We'll go to Sid, followed by Amir.
Right. So, no, great stuff. Great stuff. So, I think, Greg, you might appreciate my use of this word. America's been going through not a civil war, but a political civil war, right? Where the Democrats and the Republicans are not in the same page regarding where America's future lies, right? So we're suffering from that, right? And the world is seeing that, hey, they're not united. There's such division, and different political groups around the world will buy off a political organization against each other in order to. So like the empire, for all intents and purposes, is dying, right? And that's not a bad thing. America should have never been an empire. America fought off colonialism, built its wealth and its status by not oppressing other countries, but within its own confine. Not unlike the British Empire or the French or the other European empire. So we're not good at this as Americans, right? We're not great at being imperial power and being world leader, and we should have never been involved in that. It's just the haphazard of what happened in World War II with the British and the Germans, so forth and so on. Without going deep into the historical context, I would say that with great power comes responsibility, and we are responsible in how the world is going to be. We have a stake to play. Now, I think it's easy for us to just simply blame Trump, but I think he's reactionary, right? So he's reacting towards what he sees as a threat to what it is American power. And he's pressured the Europeans to take more action, but they said, no, we don't want to put boots on the ground. You got to beg us, you got to do all that. And maybe he lost patience. And maybe he should have been more patient, right? But the thing is, whatever it is, we're entering a multipolar world where power and structure are not only situated in one area of the world. Western power. The Chinese are coming up, the Russians have a role to play, and so forth and so on. And we have to be realistic, and I think Trump is the only realistic man out there right now. Not to say that the way he handled business is correct, and I think he takes decisions off the cuff rather than having a more well thought out policy. But he's dealing with the situation that the world. We have to forget. We have to get over. The center of power is no longer Washington, D.C. There are many centers of power, and this is going to continue for a very long period of time. And right now, who's hurt the most with the closure of the Strait of Hormuz is either China or Asian countries. Who's going to be hurt the most with the Red Sea Strait, Bab el-Mandeb being closed? Europe and North Africa, right? Where, all the wealth is accumulated, right? So who should be more responsible? It's the people that have a stake. America is a self-contained, insulated part of the world. We don't have a lot to lose here. The rest of the world do. And I think it's going to wake them up and take more responsibility. That this type of action by the Iranians and the rebels in Houthi in Yemen, those are not contributing to a betterment of the world. They're not the group of people we want to see have a say in how this earth uh, survives the next hundreds of years. We're not a best example. We do a lot of pollutions. We do a lot of crazy stuff and selfish stuff. I get it, but it's much better than the ideas of those countries. So right now, I think instead of blaming Trump and blaming America, the Europeans and the Asian countries need to wake up and see the path forward, which is to contain Iran and get rid of the Houthis. And I think um, the Houthis are the bigger threat to European wealth, and they should wake up and do something about it rather than complaining that Trump is not the greatest guy. He's done this, he's done that to us. No, now wake up and do what you need to do, which is to secure the Belt and Road, which is a choke point for what 10-20% of the world trade. And also, let's also keep in mind that Saudi Arabia's diverted all their oil resources to the Red Sea, and they need to come out through the Bab el-Mandeb to go out there to Asia, right? So not only Bab el-Mandeb is important to Europe, it's also now important to Asia as a choke point. So rather than saying Trump did this, he broke this, let's move on. Let's figure out the way forward. Get rid of the Houthis. Like I said before, the Biden administration put a lot of pressures on the Saudis and forced them to stop their operation. If they had continued to do their operation by now, the Houthis would have been gone. And what else did we do not to support the Saudi coalition or the UAE coalition? So we're paying for the past political mistake of the Democrats, as well as the now mistakes that the Republicans have made under Trump. So it's a sticky situation, but we got to move forward because the world economy right now is under threat, and that affects all of us here and everyone around the world. You know, the blame game is over. What are we going to do about this? This is my concern, Gray.
Thank you, Sin. I've got some breaking news.
Gary, sorry, I said Gray.
That's okay. I've got some breaking news that's directly related to today's discussion. The Pentagon now says nearly 100 U.S. troops have been injured in the last 2 weeks of the Iran war. The disclosure follows the New York Times report today that the Defense Department was withholding from the American people casualty figures, a report that the Pentagon attack is inaccurate. And then suddenly they release these figures. So nearly 100 injured in the last 2 weeks of the Iran war. Amir, followed by Matthew.
Just very quickly with regards to what William said, I tend to agree with a lot of points that he made, but it has to be seen in the context of Trump in the US. I mean, the US is much, much bigger than Trump, and that's something that often gets confused. I mean, from, for example, the UK perspective, US is still the leader as far as, but I mean, we do the largest trade with the US, and we heavily rely on US on the military side of things with NATO and the rest of it. And I think, to be honest with you, Trump, kicking ass of the EU countries is not a bad thing, because it has kind of paid off in terms of, their defense spending and so on, which needed to be done, because it was just a bit ridiculous. I think all US citizens would agree that, if it was only the UK that was really, and France perhaps, that was paying the 2.5% at the time, nobody else was really reaching that point, and they should do. And now they are doing and going beyond, which is a good thing. So those are the two things. And one other point which William made, which I thought was actually, to some extent, was answering his own questions or comment or point, and that was that the fact that it's not just about the trade or the military, it's also about the system of governance, it's about values, about democracy, liberalism, and multi-party democracy and everything else. And I think in all of those, we are on the same line, and definitely in many of those aspects, US is leading, and I'm talking about US, including the window of the Trump, but well beyond and above that. Thank you.
Thank you, Amir. Matthew, followed by Alyssa.
Hey guys. Yeah, man, I don't know. The war is expanding. Try to just go back to the topic of the room, but even if it expands, when I think of the Straits of Hormuz, for me, it's kind of like imagine China trying to come to the Gulf of Mexico and controlling the Gulf of Mexico, like the ships coming in and out of the Gulf of Mexico or something like that. Like the Straits of Hormuz, like that is right next to Iran, and it's very thin, and Iran just needs like basically the smaller the better. The smaller the boats that they use to mess things up in the straits, and the more the drones they have, like they don't even need to like blow anything up. They just need to like deny safe passage, right? So I just don't see any solution except for the U.S. Navy actually like leaving the straits, and then Iran may reopen it, and I think that's actually what's going to happen. I think there's going to be some negotiations in about 2 or 3 weeks. There'll be more bombing. There'll be more negotiations. The U.S. Navy will pull back, and the straits may open again. And then Trump might go back to bombing it, and then the Iranians will close it again by simply creating threats. I just don't see. I just don't see any solution to it. It's very easy to attack. It's very easy to mess around with. It's classic, like, you know what it reminds me of is, well, during like the Revolutionary War, where the British troops would get off of their boats and they would like all line up in one line, the American rebels, right? And the American rebels would be picking off redcoats by hiding in the woods or hiding behind trees. That's exactly what's happening in Iran. You know, it's just classic. It's classic. What do you call that? Guerrilla warfare. You know, it's asymmetrical warfare, and the geography allows the IRGC to win this fight. I don't think it's possible at all. Is it expanding? Maybe some troops might get dropped off in a couple places in Iran to look for the nuclear material. But again, you know, I think now there's Iran to build nuclear programs, you know, because they probably see it as a kind of regime survival now. So I think this whole thing is going backwards. It's all going in the wrong direction.
Thank you, Matthew. Alyssa, followed by Jude.
Real quick. So, Iran, I think, well, I know I can see it. Like Trump doesn't want to hurt the non-radical people of Iran. But he started something that is not going to finish easily because they are, you know how their oil was overflowing? They had to get rid of it somehow, and you know who's buying it from? I mean, if people just turn on the news or just, I don't know, open their Twitter or X, they'll see their one of their allies, China, is helping them, and Russia is supplying them with more stuff, and they never got that dust out, and so they're still creating nukes. So I don't think this is gonna end actually happening, because it's kind of gotten to them quicker, because I mean they're over in Europe and other countries in Europe. I don't know facts, but just what I've heard of in England and seen happen. And yeah, I wish Trump would have listened to all of the many retired generals that kept saying you cannot, which is obvious now, you cannot negotiate with these people. And that's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Alyssa. So you're right, Iran is actively attempting to rebuild and restore its damaged nuclear infrastructure. We don't know the extent of its success. There's a lot of debating about that, but I think there's universal belief that that is exactly what's going on. Dude, you get the last word.
Well, I'll just say that I hope that it doesn't expand, but it does seem to be the likely situation that the world is currently facing. Trade corridors matter. There are probably other trade corridors that are being worked on building. Africa being a continent rich in resources. Russia and China and America are probably looking at different economic and trade agreements that will either dissipate.
You cut yourself off there, dude. You stop talking mid-sentence. Go ahead, try it again, Bob. Apparently he's got a technical issue. Folks, we're here Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock New York time. So till 5 o'clock New York time tomorrow for the next edition of the Critical Thinking Forum. Everybody be safe, be well, and peace out.
shared place with equal access to citizen and non-citizen alike. That is a place.
I will open a room now. I will open a room. If you are a man has balls, no problem. I will open a room.
How's it going? Doing all right, man. Good to see you. Long time. Yes, sir.
Yeah, but me too. But I've never had a problem, getting a PDF from an author ever, but
It's about society, though. That's not a prediction. I can sit there and say, yeah, in the next 250 years, there's going to be a war between this country and that country, and the chances that I'm right are significantly high, especially with how fucking countries operate. You're making blanket statements about society. You're saying, oh my God, that's the correct.
And he talks about water being one of those things that he brought into existence. We're not disputing that. The statement that the Quran is making, right, that God is making in the Quran, that God is revealing to us,
I understand.
right, is that,
What?
right, all living things, right, all living things in order.
What is it? Talk some more. What's he saying?
And
These people, I mean, Neanderthals.
and this
What's
is
God
why
saying?
my title, y'all will
Tell me what
regret.
he's saying.
Neanderthals.
Yeah, right. What's he saying?
This is what they are. Look how they behave. Like Neanderthals.
Okay, tell me what he's saying,
It's
right?
not just
Tell
the
me
white.
what God's saying in the Quran. The newer book. What's he saying? Tell me about it again.
It's so easy, even the case.
But all living things are created from what?
That's what he said. All living
Well,
things are created from water.
well, Bronco, can you recite the verse directly? So that I don't
He's saying that evolution is
Yeah, I'll pull the verse up.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you believe in evolution then,
No,
basically.
What
do you mean?
Don't speak for my belief. You don't have to speak for my belief. Let me tell you like this. This is a, please stop. Okay?
That's what evolution
You don't,
says.
let me tell you like this. You do
That's what
not, okay,
evolution
well, if
says.
evolution says it, right? Show me that
So you
prior
disagree
to the
with
Quran. Show me that prior to the Quran because that was the argument. That was my statement, yeah. Show me any literature prior to the Quran that stated this.
Oh, I would say, I already told you, Genesis says
No,
it all.
that's not stating that. We already went over that. We're not talking about God creating water. We know God is the creator of all things.